Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to a special episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast. This is the Philippines edition, Philippines travel edition, brought to you in part by United Airlines. I feel like if I say that, then they're going to sponsor it eventually. They have to sponsor it, right? Or All Nippon Airlines. So I think for this episode, everyone, you're going to hear a recent trip that we just took to the Philippines. I'll explain kind of what we were doing there and some of the fun things that we were able to do. But on this call, I am joined by Brittany, who you guys all know. She's the runner of the show, the backbone of this company, everything. It's Brittany. We're also joined by her husband, Johnson. Oh, I should have said say hello. Sorry about that. And then we also have one of our favorite returning non-dental guests, Daniel Hulbert. So everyone's on the call today.
Happy to be here.
Okay, so the purpose, everyone. The purpose of why did we go to the Philippines? So first of all, as most of you know, I lived in the Philippines for 2 years doing a church mission. And actually, Daniel also did at that same time, which is one of the reasons why he's here on the show tonight. And this is, Daniel, it's been almost 20 years now since we were in the Philippines.
Yeah, it's been a long time. You and I met November of 2002. Whoa, we're old. And now it's 22. So yeah, it's been a long time.
And you were lucky enough, fortunate enough to be able to go back. How many years was it that you went back?
So I had a chance to go with my wife in 2014. So it's been 8 years since we've been there. So it's also been a long time for me. Yeah.
And so, in that time, things have changed. And one of the things, the main purpose of why we went there was, for the back end of the podcast, you all know that we have an editing team and we're looking to continue to grow. We're looking to be more efficient. We have some friends and family that live in the Philippines who could easily, pick up a second job or an additional little workload here and there. And I thought it might be nice to be able to, give someone a job, first of all, but also help us to be able to, if we have something that we need to record, well, they're 12 hours different. So if it's, 3 p.m. our time, it's 3 a.m. their time and vice versa. While we're sleeping, they could get the recordings edited and turned back to us. And so just from an efficiency standpoint, we thought it might be nice to see if there's anybody available that would want to work with us on the podcast. And so, yes, you could do a lot of those things over Zoom. But one of the things that I didn't know, Daniel, was, 20 years ago in Kapas Tarlac, where we went, I remember there was one McDonald's in that thing, and there was the open air market, the local open air market. And if you wanted to use the internet, you had to go to an internet cafe. That's what I remember. That was my truth. And now in this day of Wi-Fi, working from home, and all of these other things, I just wanted to see what was there. Kapas, by the way, Daniel, has grown exponentially. There's also now a Jollibee.
Whoa, awesome.
I know. You know that the town has grown and has made it when there's a Jollibee. So Jollibee went in, and it was a 2-story Jollibee. Then the McDonald's, that was a 1-story when I was there, ended up becoming a 2-story because Jollibee was a 2-story. And so they're trying to who's the best one in Kapas. So anyway, before we get into all of that, let's start at the beginning of the trip. At the beginning of the trip, we're going to enter Johnson and Brittany into this. We met in Chicago. And thank you, by the way, both of you, for joining Allison and I on this trip. I know it was kind of an ordeal getting there and coming back, and you guys made the time for it, so I appreciate that. But we met in Chicago. Does anyone want to take it from there?
Yeah, so we met in Chicago, and it was my first time actually meeting Andrew. My wife has had all these discussions with him over the last few years, multiple times a day. She talks to him more than me. and I've never met the guy. And so it was nice to finally put a name with a a real face, not a Zoom face.
Yeah.
And get the party started. But yeah, we got there. We got all of our Philippines and Japan COVID information figured out, and we got checked in, and we did what all folks should do when they go to the airport: find the lounges immediately, get to the lounge, get the free food, get the free Wi-Fi, get comfortable, and that's what we did.
And that was the first of many lounges on this trip.
That was the first of the lounge saga.
It was one of the most important parts of the trip, I think, because it was an interesting one. So yeah, it was our first time meeting ever. It felt to me, weirdly enough, I had forgot that we hadn't met before in person. I was like, wait, do I shake hands? Do I give him a little bro hug? Like, what do we do in this situation here? So sorry about being so awkward right at the beginning. But the right now, everyone, it's there's lots of travel restrictions going to Asia. While the rest of the world is opening up quite a bit, getting into Asia can still be a little bit tricky. And so, we got on the flight, and our first stopover was in Tokyo, and we had a really, really long layover there. It was almost an unbearable experience, actually, that layover. It was pretty much terrible. But one of my favorite parts about this is when we were getting off the plane and we were met right outside the plane with our names on. Well, Johnson's name wasn't on the piece of paper, but everyone else's name was on the piece of paper.
Was on there twice. Both versions of my name, maiden and married.
and so first of all, we're thinking, okay, like, what do we do? Right. Like you never want to be met at the plane with your names on a piece of paper unless it's like, hey, this is your driver and we're going to escort you through the airport to get you to your car or whatever. So we get there. What was the guy's name again? Do you guys remember?
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. It was Yas Ohino.
Yas Ohino.
From ANA Airlines.
Shout out to Yas.
Yeah. Ohino-san.
he struggled in figuring out all of our paperwork.
Yeah, because Japan was, I would say, of anywhere that we checked in, the United States, Tokyo, and the Philippines, Tokyo was definitely the most on it in terms of really making sure that all of your paperwork was in line. And so for Johnson and I, where we had received our COVID tests in New Orleans, they don't put a timestamp on it. They just print the date that you received it. And so with the layover and time change, he was, trying to do the math to figure out that our COVID tests were actually valid. And so poor guy was really trying to work with us and a language barrier to make sure that we were going to be okay getting into the Philippines.
Yeah, I liked it. He, more than anything, he didn't let us leave his site. So we get off the plane. We're not even clear of the jetway yet. And he's there. He's rounded us up. Yeah. We went through that initial kind of customs area and your bag check where you have to go through security. He never let us out of his sight. I think he was a little concerned we were going to book it and be like, all right, we're leaving this airport. We're going to go kick it in Tokyo for a little while. But he got us through. Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of nice having that personal escort because also, if anyone's ever done an international trip, it's not hard to navigate an airport. There's signs everywhere, but it's nice to be because it's like, okay, well, you have to go then get, put your bags through security again. Then now where do you go from here? And when we were there, we got there in the late afternoon, early evening, and the Haneda airport, by the way, is closed down. Like it was a ghost town. It was shocking to me, even though I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be super busy, how empty that place was and how many like shops and stuff were closed at that point in time. It was kind of unfortunate. So, so we're moving on. So we spent the night in the airport. We all froze. We were all uncomfortable. It was fantastic. And then the next day we are jumping on a plane to Manila. And so I feel like, lounge part 2 was like a godsend that next morning with the A&A lounge.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, you're skipping over the best shower of my entire life. I'm so grateful for the shower in the lounge after sleeping on a bench for however many hours. But I'm not sure actually the name of the lounge. I guess it was the A&A lounge.
It's the A&A lounge.
Yeah.
Great showers. If you're ever there, highly recommend.
For anyone who's curious, it's on the priority pass. So if you're an Amex Platinum card holder, you're covered with that lounge.
Feel
I
free to
mean,
sponsor.
that's, yeah, seriously, American Express go and sponsor this one. I think that's a really good point too. So, because we're going to talk about lounges a little bit more, and I don't want you guys to be like, oh my gosh, they're so rich and going into lounges. Oh my gosh, so AToTH pulling in the big bucks, but which is definitely not the case. The reason why we're able to access the lounges is because, Johnson, you guys have, priority pass, and that's just through an affiliation of a credit card, right? And so a lot of people have access to that. And then for Allison and myself, we have it's not the most basic tier, but it's like the next tier up for travel, which is like your on United, it's the gold level. And when you're gold, then anytime you go internationally, you're part of the Star Alliance Gold Network, and you get free lounge access to all of that. You also get free lounge access to the United States when you're traveling internationally too on that gold. So it's not like, it's not hard to achieve. It's very attainable for everyone. It's just, you have to look into it a little bit and kind of maybe prioritize and plan a little bit ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, the food was awesome. The shower was awesome. It was we got nice and toasty, warmy again. And then we were ready to go to the Philippines. Now, Daniel, do you remember the first time we got off the plane in Manila in 2003? Well, it was early 2003 is when we went to Manila then.
Yeah, I do. I remember you get hit with the wave of humidity. We ended up landing in an older part of the Manila airport, and it had seen better days. And the air conditioning wasn't working spectacularly. And we just got hit with the wave of humidity. And then we just got in a big long line as part of our, immigration process.
So I'll have you know that wave of humidity is still there, just waiting for you to jump off the plane. Yes.
Wonderful.
And so that was the first thing that I'm like, okay, I'm home. Like, we have humidity here in Florida. It's different. It's just different. And I enjoyed it. I welcomed it. We'll kind of fast forward ahead, because I don't think the listeners care too much about the customs and immigration status, but it's pretty streamlined now. You have different lines. You just get all of as long as you have your documentation ready for whatever country you're going into. In this particular case, into the Philippines, we had it already. We showed everybody. There's a couple of checkpoints, and then we grabbed our bag and we walked out the door. It felt a little bit weird that it felt so easy to me, at least, but I was very grateful that it was pretty streamlined.
I don't want to dwell on it too much, but so I didn't get to go on this trip, but I'm actually going to the Philippines with two of my children in about 2 months. So what are they looking for COVID wise?
This time it was pretty easy. So you have to have your vaccination record. And then you also have to have an RT-PCR test within 48 hours of your first plane ride, wherever your first departure point is.
Okay, that's great to know, because we're going to have a long layover in Korea, and I just want to make sure that we don't have to do it 48 hours to arriving in the Philippines, because that's not going to work out very well.
No, and for the Philippines specifically, they were, and also here in the States, they were really good about, as long as you have a screenshot of your documentation, you were good to go. And I think screenshot's the way to go if you can beforehand, because then you don't have to rely on the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi was unreliable for us in the Philippines just because we didn't have a Philippine phone number, like a SIM card for the Philippines. And so we couldn't actually access the Wi-Fi unless we're in one of the lounges in the Manila airport. So little interesting tidbit there.
Excellent. Thanks. That's great to know.
There's also a health pass, by the way, that you have to fill out before you go. And so make sure you'll get a QR code. Make sure you have a picture of that for each of you three.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so then the first place we returned to Capas. So the cool thing is we were able to get a van transfer. The Philippines is a little bit, I don't want to say behind the times, whatever the nice term is for being behind the times is what the Philippines is. It's buses still. Buses are a big mode of transportation to go kind of long distances. And I mean, unless you're going to rent a car in a really busy city, though, you don't really have that many options. So we did end up getting a van rented and driven by somebody else to take us from Manila to Capas. Capas is a small town. It was about almost 2 hours north by car in the middle of the big island to the north called Luzon. And it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of has grown. It was traditionally a farming community. And then it kind of just got bigger and bigger as more industry kind of came in. And so it was there that we were looking for our editor first and foremost. We were also looking at opportunities possibly to do a mission trip in the Philippines. And that's something that we were kind of always keeping an eye on. But I'm going to turn this back over to Brittany and Johnson. So we got there that first night. And that was really, I think, your first experience when we went to that place to get the inasal, the chicken.
Yes.
That was your first Filipino food, I believe, of the
It
trip.
was.
What are your thoughts?
It was delicious. And then we subsequently ate the same thing for like, I don't know how many meals after that, but Johnson, I think we had it like 3 times in a row or something because it was so good. It's very simple, essentially grilled chicken and rice, but they have this sauce that you dip the chicken into, and it was just delicious. And we also learned how to eat properly in the Philippines with our hands, which
Yes.
neither Johnson, I mean, obviously we've eaten like burgers and, fries and that kind of thing, but this is a
This ain't
different
no burger.
kind of scooping technique that we, I think I would say we have mastered at this point. I'm pretty sure I
Yes,
got
yeah.
approval by the fam. So we are pros.
Yeah.
Yes.
So initially, I think, you go to a place, you're going to try the food, and that's great. And there's tons of people there. So you're like immediately, odd man out. It's not until you realize that there's a dedicated sink washing station and no utensils, and everyone around you is using their hands, that you realize you're in a completely different culture than you've previously been in. And, eating with your hands is interesting. Proper technique. You use basically 3 fingers on one hand and your thumb to press and then pick up, and then you use your thumb to essentially push the food into your mouth, which is a wild experience. I probably won't do it all the time. That's for sure. Probably continue to use fork and knife here in the States, but I'm glad I was able to take part.
I say, if you had to, though, you know how to do it now. That's the
Right.
most
If I had
important
to.
part. Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm road tripping with no fork and knife,
Someone
we bring
forgets
real
to pack
meals.
your cutlery
Yeah,
in the drive-through. We are prepared.
sounds like we're covered.
And so we also, at that time, we had a dish called sisig. And sisig is, the way I can explain it, so I think that people have never seen it before, is if you think about like when your fajitas come out on that sizzling plate, right? And so a lot of times on the menus, sisig will be called sizzling sisig. And it's just pieces of pork, usually from, from the face, like the cheek or whatever of the pig, which sounds terrible and sounds disgusting. But it's one of my favorite dishes of all time. I really like sisig a lot. And that place did a really good job of making it. We also had sisig later. I think it was the next day over with Roniel made it for us. But do you guys remember that dish?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
It was delicious. It smelled, so good coming out, similar to, like when you would get fajitas and it comes out and it's still sizzling right in front of you. So it smells so good, but I feel like it had a little like finely chopped, maybe like peppers and onions in there too, at least the first time that we had it. And it smelled delicious, and it also tasted great.
There's these small red peppers, which I think they call them Thai chilies in the United States, but they're just different than the Thai chilies. They're a lot hotter, but they don't overpower, they don't overwhelm. You can still taste the food. It is pretty darn spicy. I remember after that one, I had a little bit of a kind of like a runny nose a little bit. I was sniffing quite a bit, and I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this feels so good to be back. Okay, so we're going to jump into kind of a broader category, because this is also the first place that we had some of the different fruits that the Philippines offers, was in Capa. So we had mango. We also had pineapple while we were there. We had, what else did we have there?
We had a lot of bananas.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of bananas.
Yeah. The delicious little mini ones. If you've ever been to anywhere in Southeast Asia, they have these little baby bananas, and they are different and far superior to our American bananas.
They are. And I like it because you go to it's like this little stand that's on the road, roadside stand, and you can kind of pick whichever type of banana that you want. A lot of the shorter ones are actually quite sweet. If you ask the people and say, are these sweet? And they'll say yes. If it's not, if it's more like for cooking, like a plantain-ish type banana, which I guess not really banana, but it's plantain. But if you have that, then they'll let you know that as well. So you just have to ask the questions. But I've been bragging for 20 years that the Philippine mango is the best mango in the world. And Allison, she's not on this tonight, but she knew I was telling the truth. But then when she had that first bite, she's like, okay, I get what you're saying now. And for everyone that's out there that's like, I don't like mangoes, I'm telling you, this is different. This is not the same type of mango. This is not that fibrous, stringy mango that sometimes you find in the United States. It is pure joy and wholesome goodness.
Gold, liquid gold.
Liquid gold.
I'm gonna say that I'm really happy to hear that because I'm not lying, I'm not exaggerating. Andrew was like, I have to go to the Philippines during mango season. He did not want to go when it was not the season. So I'm glad that it lived up to your memories. I'm very happy about that.
Daniel, I think, by the way, I'm gonna call him Dong. It's a term. It's a Southern Filipino term that we've called each other for years. And it's hard not to say when I look at his face on here. So there were several things that I was concerned about that were going to disappoint me, and almost none of them disappointed me. There's only one, the second to last day that we were in the Philippines. It's Zagu. Zagu just really.
No, say it so.
It is very much so.
Leave it as a pleasant memory in your mind.
No,
that's what they're like.
Broken.
They're like, we went pretty far out of our way to make sure that we had this, and we had planned it and we talked about it. And I'm telling you, Daniel, it was terrible. It wasn't even like not good. It was actively being terrible.
We were watching it being made, and I was like, Andrew, are you sure you don't want to just let that be a pleasant memory? Because I could tell by looking at it being made, I was like, this is not going to be great. And unfortunately, it was not great. That was one of the only things about the trip I would say that was not great.
So my question is, I know that is Zagu quite different than like the bubble teas that are becoming popular?
Yeah.
It's quite a bit different actually.
And maybe we should, maybe y'all should break down for those that don't know what Zagu is, what it was, what your memory was, and then what we experienced.
Okay. So as a missionary back then, we didn't have very much money. We had about $100 to live on every month. And so we never really bought extra anything, no treats, no really, because we had to use it for all of our travel. We had to use it for all of our food. We had to use it for just like your everyday stuff. You need new shoes, like that has to come out of that budget somehow, And so every now and again, we would go to these kind of bigger mall areas where the Zagus were. And there would be, sometimes 20 missionaries kind of converging onto this mall. And we would have maybe like we'd all go in and share like pizza or something like just special that every day we had Filipino food. That was our diet, was Filipino food while we were there, because it was not very expensive and it was delicious and it was very filling. And so one of these things is like every few months when we go to these malls is there to have a Zagu, and we're like, oh, that's the treat. I'm going to go ahead and spend, 60 cents, 30 pesos or whatever it was on this Zagu. And it was that time, I remember it being more creamy, like as it was being blended. It's ice based, and then they had powder, and they had these tapioca pearls that were at the bottom. And I just remember that the tapioca pearls were really warm, and that the Zagu was like thick and it felt creamy. That is not what I had this time, Daniel.
Oh no.
It was very syrupy, very, it wasn't very good. So that memory though, of we all get to come together and have this treat has been tarnished forever.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's all right.
Just so you know, if I had the chance, I will try it still though.
Maybe a different one. Maybe like a different location.
I think, that one was not, I feel like also they didn't have all the flavors and all that kind of stuff too. So I don't know if it was more of a kiosk rather than like kind of bigger kiosks that they had before. Because before I remember they would have like 3 or 4 people working. This one only had 1 person working. It was a very small area. So
okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's okay. So we had lots of other types of food while we were in Capas. Johnson. Yes, sir.
Yes. So speaking of other food, one thing that hasn't come up yet, and if you don't want to get into it, we don't have to. But I wanted to ask Daniel what his memory of Baloo was like.
So, interesting enough, I never actually had balut in the Philippines. I saw it. I was horrified by it.
Mm.
I actually had my first balut with Andrew in his apartment in Washington State.
Nah. Oh,
I
my
think.
gosh.
Well, I think it was at Mike's house. I think we took it over to Mike's house, and I think.
where did
But
you
yeah,
find it?
it was at the Asian
Why did
stores.
you find it?
Oh.
That's the better question. That is the much better question: is why did we find it?
And if I remember correctly, it's supposed to be quite soft boiled. We boiled them hard boiled plus, and then attempted to eat them. And I may have shed a tear because it was so gross.
So Daniel Johnson also tried balut for the first time.
Whoa.
Do we want to tell the listeners what balut is as well?
Is this appropriate conversation for the listeners?
If they made it this far into the show, then they deserve this.
Okay.
If you have a queasy stomach, maybe fast forward a little bit.
yeah. If you're afraid of food, this is not for you. So balut is, like they said, it is a soft boiled egg. The caveat here is that it's not your egg from the grocery store. It's a fertilized egg, meaning there is a developing bird inside of it. And when I say developing, I don't mean no feathers. I mean, there's feathers on this bird.
Little beak and feet.
Oh, there's everything. So you get it from the lady who's boiling it or whatever, like fresh out of the pot on the street, and you crack the area that you can kind of see, like where there's no white. And you then peel this boiling hot egg, burning yourself, knowing that you're about to have a terrible experience. And once you get about half the shell off, you drink what's left inside first, which actually was not bad. That part was the easiest of all of it. Then you basically, I guess you just get the rest of the shell off, and then you start eating it. And you are eating hard-boiled egg, yolk, white, and bird. And I mean bird with freaking feathers on it. There were feathers as I was trying to eat this thing. I got through about half of it. There was part of a wing stuck in my mouth. The beak was dark. I was trying to chew as fast as I could because basically Andrew and I were like, well, if you do it, I'll do it. Yeah. And we got through about 50% and we called it good at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this is, I think, number 6 time that I've tried it. I've not been successful. This is actually the most successful I've ever been with it and getting, half of it down without throwing up and not hating myself too much later on. But it's the experience I'm glad that you were able to have. I'm Absolutely. So happy that you did that.
I'm glad I had the experience. Do I need to do it again? Definitely not. Will I do it again at some point? Probably.
That's
I'll feel the same way next time.
Yeah.
And Ro, if you're listening from Xyrus, I'm really grateful that we had the conversation about balut so that I knew to steer clear. I was just like, oh yeah, honey, you go try that with Andrew. Like, enjoy.
No, he ruined that opportunity for you. You
thank you, Ro. I owe you one.
So we have pictures of that experience. I'm not really sure when we're going to post any of these things, but hopefully we'll be able to, we'll post some of those soon. So other than that, kind of like maybe a little bit scarring experience, the food generally was pretty darn good. I think in Capas, we also had, pancit, we had adobo, we had caldereta, which was
amazing.
Phenomenal.
That was probably my favorite dish that we had down there. I always enjoyed it, but I think Roniel did a really good job of cooking that one specifically. What else do we have?
Those are like 4.
I'm going to forget the name, but this kind of sour soup.
Oh, sinigang. Yeah. Daniel, one of your favorites.
Oh, I love sinigang.
It was super good. I love anything like kind of acidic and tart. And so I really liked it a lot.
We had quack quack.
Quack quack? Oh,
we did. That was in Manila, but that was one of the key foods that actually was fantastic. Another hard-boiled egg situation, but not in a weird way.
It's a quail egg. It's a lot smaller, and then they batter it and fry it.
And it has this amazing sauce that it gets dipped in.
It's practically like buffalo fried, though. I mean, it's fantastic.
They do a really good job on that one, and it wasn't all that expensive. But Daniel, you sinigang. You were going to say something about that?
Yeah, I say, did this particular sinigang change your mind on the sinigang experience?
I didn't try it. So sinigang, everyone, is just like, so it's tamarind, right? That's the soup base of it, and it is a sour, soup. It's just it's meant to be. I've never enjoyed it, not once, and I saw it, I avoided it. So
that's fair. I've introduced it to my family, and it's kind of become almost like our household chicken soup. So like if you have a cold or something like that, you just take some sinigang, take that, and you stamped your ticket to cloud nine.
That's not how that happens. We so our chicken soup was tinola, which we did have down in El Nido.
Very good.
If you guys remember that one soup,
Yes,
the
very tasty.
ginger based soup, and so that's my go-to soup. Or arroscaldo is the one that we had in the lounge in Manila. That kind of was like a congee type dish
yeah.
as well.
Also like that a lot.
That was also really good. So those are my go-to if you're sick and you want to eat Filipino food. So while we're on it, just the food, just so we can kind of get past the food, because that was like the main point of all of our things that we were doing there, everyone. Like it was find an editor and then eat food. Like those are the two things of why you go to the Philippines. So in addition to Quack Quack at that one market that we were at, we also had a couple of drinks. Do you guys remember the Buko Pandan drink, the green looking one?
I did. It was phenomenal. It was so good that that's the flavor of Zagu that I got, which was not so good. It did not live up to the drink that we had at the market. But it is this, if you love coconut, it is this like coconut rich, beautiful drink that has, I don't want to say gelatin, but it's kind of like little cubes of like flavored gelatin in it, so I love that in Asia, there's all these like things that you add into your beverages to have texture. Like it's, you don't just drink something to drink it. It makes it fun. So
it's like you eat your drink a little bit.
Exactly. You eat it a little bit, a little texture makes it fun. But it was delicious and probably in like top 5 favorite things I had while we were there, I'd say. I loved it.
Nice. I like that. You know what we did forget was the mix dessert.
Yes, I know. I was thinking about that.
So we also had halo halo. Halo halo, if you've ever seen any sort of like Filipino food dessert programming or whatever, it is shaved ice. And in that there could be some more of those gelatins. There's usually some sort of a bean in there as well. Daniel, what else is in there? Sometimes there's like Rice Krispies in there.
Is like a lechin flan, like a flan?
Yeah, the leche flan, yeah. Then they have ube ice cream a lot of times, kind of on top. What else can they put in there?
Corn sometimes.
Sometimes they'll put corn in there.
Different types of fruit.
They can kind of, just put kind of whatever they want. I think there's jackfruit in there and a few other ones as well. So that was your first time having, and I think we had a pretty decent halo halo. What was your thoughts on the halo halo?
I thought it was great. I mean, that's something that I would enjoy having in the U.S. I'm kind of surprised we don't see it, honestly.
Daniel, franchise opportunity?
Oh, the Halo Halo USA edition. I like it.
Halo Kings.
Yes.
I like it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we're skipping over as far as food goes before we move on. The bakeries.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the bakeries are good.
Gosh, how could we forget?
So we had a variety of things. So one thing that I do want to just straighten out, just no one's going to care about this, but for the record, because it's the podcast and whatever, there's this thing called pandesal that you can find in the United States, and it looks like almost like a dinner roll. That is not freaking pandesal. I am so sorry to tell you, that is the biggest lie that big Filipino bakery in the United States is basically throwing at you, and it's a lie, and I hate it. Pandesal is in reality more of an oval shape, and it's a lot smaller than those things are, and it is awesome and delicious and a little bit sweet, but also a little bit savory, and just the perfect mix. That's what you need to have in the Philippines. That's your base like breakfast bread item. The next one I would suggest we also had was Spanish bread. So that was the one that had the butter and sugar in the middle of it that's kind of melted with the bread. Also phenomenal. And then we had Panda Coco, which is the coconut and sugar and butter on the inside, which is one of my favorites.
I was gonna say, I think it's my favorite of all. They were so good. And we also had some ube ones too. That had the ube in it, little purple filling.
Yeah, so ube is a purple yam, and so you'll see it in the ice cream, the baked goods, kind of just in different desserts and things like that as well. which is just a delightful, surprisingly not too sweet, but a good addition to texture and flavor.
Have you ever found good pandesal or like any good baked goods here in the States that are
None.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm just so disillusioned by what they keep trying to tell us as this is a Filipino bread. I've been even so in that same Robinson's Mall in Capas, or it's actually Luisita, there's one that was called Goldilocks. It was a bakery. It's a kind of a chain bakery. And there's a Goldilocks up in Vancouver, British Columbia. And so Allison and I went there trying to find these things, knowing that in Canada, they have just a little bit different rules as far as like, food and drug and all that kind of stuff is just different. What they can import, what they can't import, what's food and what's not. Anyway, so we thought it was going to be a little bit more authentic, and it just wasn't. And it was like their name brand bakery even. And so I've been looking all over. I actually haven't found good Filipino food in the United States either. The best place is going to be in Queens. There's a small little place in Queens that our friend Daniel Lopez took us to, and that was like the best Filipino food I've ever had. That was the as close to the experiences that we had for the United States. So also don't be disillusioned when you guys go try and find Filipino food later on. You're like, oh, this isn't even close to being the same. So.
If you're at Greater New York, let us know and we'll take a trip.
We'll do it. Day trip with AToTH. We'll do it. Okay. Dong, is there any food that you can think of that we should have had that you're curious about?
Did you guys have any other like amazing like breakfast foods or anything like that?
Oh yeah, we did. We didn't talk about breakfast foods.
I enjoyed breakfast there a lot. It's not that far off of American breakfast, but it's pretty good. I mean, they do garlic rice with every breakfast, which is actually fantastic. And garlic rice combined with 2 fried eggs, some fruit, and some sort of breakfast meat, which they have the longaniza and tocino, probably the 2 preferred. Tocino is a very sweet pork product, and the longaniza is more like traditional breakfast sausage, but it's a lot lighter, a little more flavor, a little more natural tasting, a little less salty.
Yeah, breakfast. If you're a breakfast eater, like you'll have a good time. We had that most of the days there in Capas, and then when we moved down to El Nido, they had kind of similar. Well, we did the one breakfast in town, which mango pancakes. Everyone,
yeah, phenomenal. I was gonna say that was like one of the breakfast highlights for me.
Oh yeah,
I mean, naturally, you're putting the world's best mango in there, so
I mean, how can you go wrong, right? And with a pancake and a little bit of syrup on it. That one was really good. The fruits that they had served with breakfast was really good. Like the bananas that they had. They had
a watermelon. It was like orange,
golden.
Yeah, so that was a nice one. It didn't. I mean, it tasted to me maybe less sweet than the red one, but same deliciousness.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. So they also had cantaloupe in one of them that was really good.
Papaya.
They had some papaya.
Or we had jackfruit in the market. It wasn't in that bowl, but
what did you guys think about the jackfruit?
So jackfruit's great. I think the texture is fantastic. It's this really velvety, smooth, sort of fleshy fruit. It has a great flavor. It has a very strong, almost cinnamon flavor to it as well. That's the only part that I thought was maybe a bit much for me, just eating it plain. But I think the texture of it was really like what won me over.
It's got some good, like you bite into it and there's substance there, which is really.
I could see cooking satisfying with it. Like I'm surprised it's not like incorporated more into like stir fries and things, because I could see it being like a really good with like a sweet and spicy kind of situation.
Yeah. Or I could even see it as like a meat replacement in some instances, right? So yeah, that was good. Yeah, I mean, if you are a breakfast person, like you're gonna enjoy your time there. They have mango shakes and drinks and smoothies and all sorts of different things that you can get. Pineapple, anything to go with your breakfast. I really like that. It felt like it was a very fruit forward country, not very vegetable forward country though. However,
not a lot of vegetables during the time we were there. Not a lot of vegetables on menus.
Yeah. So that might take a little bit of getting used to. I had forgotten about that piece until we went back, and I'm like, man, we are starving for some vegetables. So sorry about that. Okay, so public transportation. Okay, actually, Johnson, why don't you do this part in with the trikes and the jeepneys? Like, I mean, you saw it for the first time as we were going into Capas. Like, what did you experience?
So when I first saw the trike, my initial thought was, okay, this is a tourist trap. Like, these are just going to be guys trying to get me on this device to roll around town, but it's not. So trikes and jeepies are your primary form of transportation in the Capas area. What a trike is it is a motorcycle with a 2-person-ish, 1.5-person sidecar.
2 Filipino or Filipinas,
2 Filipinos,
1
yeah.
American.
Right. 2 4'8" people who are under 100 pounds can fit fine. If you're an American, like an average size American, it's challenging to fit 2. But they are, it's a motorcycle with a sidecar, and both are covered. Some people can even put luggage on top of them, and you can fit half a dozen people on this thing. I know when we were traveling at one point, our driver had his son sitting in front of his lap on the motorcycle, and Brittany was in the back with at least 1 or 2 other people, and I was sitting sideways on the back of the motorcycle itself. So, we had a handful running around at 30, 40 miles an hour, and they're very inexpensive and they're very efficient. They can get anywhere pretty fast.
Yeah.
What's the saying in the Philippines, Andrew, about like there's always room for one more?
In the jeepneys, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Kasha pa?
I think it applies to trikes too.
I think it does as well.
For sure.
Yeah, the Jeep, is Jeepy or Jeepney?
Jeepney.
I was not pronouncing that right up until now.
Yeah, that's all right.
So the Jeepney is, I guess it's like an old CJ Jeep or even maybe a Land Cruiser. I really can't figure out who made them and what product they were, but they're like the limousine of Jeeps. They're open in the back, and you literally will fit as many people as possible in, and you just tell them how many people you got with you, and you're paying them and where you're going, and they continue to run. One of them even filled up while we were with him. He had a big plastic container in the middle of the vehicle that somehow funneled into the actual gas tank, and he filled it up like that. And other people were filling it up with homemade fuel. It's kind of Wild West. It's great.
I love it. I mean, Daniel and I, like, this was our primary mode of transportation. Like, anywhere we were going was trikes or jeepneys, like, all the time. I think Daniel did more buses and stuff when he was on his mission and kind of when he went back. But really, for like local travel, you have to understand, like, there's a route that these jeepneys take, and it's going to be, I think it was Tarlac to Bamban is the route. And so whatever side of the road you're standing on, as far as like the direction of traffic goes, if you see it, flag it down with your hand. You just kind of wave it in front, like you're kind of hailing a taxi, I guess, too. And then you just climb in the back. Well, the one thing I really liked about you guys' experience, like, you guys jumped in, and like when you give the money, you say "Bayad po," and then you pass up the money, like, through the people to the driver, and then like usually they'll hold on to the money, look in their rearview mirror, and be like, like, hold it up, like, where is this going, or how many people are there? And you guys were good about like saying like how many people there were, and where we were going, which is, I remember, Daniel, you remember the first time you had to pay in the jeepney?
Yes, I was terrified.
It was so scary. It was not the adventure that the happiness that I saw in your guys' eyes as you were passing the money up. That's not what we experienced.
We had a good teacher. It was fun. I was like, I want to sit close to the driver so I can pay him other people's money.
And then you guys like passing the money back and forth.
Oh yeah,
like
you pass the money.
Yeah.
You guys did a really good job with that. I was very, like, if you guys would have been like my trainees on the mission, like that, it would have been an easy transition for you guys. The trikes though in El Nido were quite a bit bigger.
Oh yeah, they had a hard surrounding for the sidecar as well.
Yeah, they had. So normally there's like when you enter into the sidecar for the ones up in Capas and the other places, there's one bench, so you're facing forward. But in El Nido, there's 2 benches, one facing forward, one facing backwards inside. And the purpose of that obviously is like there's more vacationing tourists, and the sidecar was also a lot taller. So like me as a 6'1" person could actually sit up in there and not feel like I was, gonna get smashed inside this piece of metal. And so that was really nice. Both Allison and I could fit inside the ones in El Nido. So if you have luggage, there's like a luggage rack in the back as well. And If there was 3 of us, we could easily have done, 3 of us as well. The one thing that I'll say, Daniel, going back, was the cost of these things from one place to another has greatly increased. I remember, I swear it was the Luisita, the Capas, and then back was only like 7 pesos a piece before. Now it was 20 pesos a piece each way.
25.
Was it 25? Oh yeah, because it was 100. Yeah, 25 pesos a piece each way. So it's really gone up. When we were in El Nido, the average trike ride was probably about 100 pesos, maybe a little bit more, kind of depending on the distance and things like that. Sometimes it was 50, sometimes 100, sometimes 150. And
for the record, 25 pesos is 50 cents US.
So,
right.
It's
So
yeah,
relative.
True. So yes. So that's true. But it used to be 14 cents. So it's like the when we're poor missionaries and stuff. But I keep thinking about like our friends and stuff that are still there, and all the people that we met on our missions, and what a shock that must be in 20 years time of inflation. That's quite a bit, actually. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, can I ask you a question? I feel like you are skipping over seeing your family that you hadn't seen in 20 years and that whole experience, because for me that was like our first Manila experience, was getting out of the airport, crazy busy as you would expect, people everywhere, vans, cars, trikes honking, and then you being reunited with these people that you've kept in touch with for 20 years but haven't seen in person.
So it's really hard to describe this relationship to everyone else. And Daniel has these people in his life. Every missionary, I think, has this one family from your first area who kind of, they were looking out for you. They knew that you were brand new, didn't speak the language. The word plancha, which is like an iron. I remember very specifically standing in my first house, and Nanay was trying to explain to me, hey, this is called plancha. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, lady. Like, you're crazy. Like, quit talking to me. Like, just keep ironing. Like, I don't know, like, what's going on here. Just stop. Don't engage with me. But so the family name is Bosotros. And in the Philippines, it's very common to refer to somebody as like a older brother, mother, uncle, whatever. Like, it's just, even if you're not really blood related. And so this family, Nanay, which means mother, Nanay Bosotros, we always called her Nanay. She was a young widow. I think in retrospect, because she's still pretty young. She probably was only maybe my age now, or around that age, now that I think about it. And she had probably an 18-year-old, probably a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, and a 13-year-old or 10-year-old or something like that. I mean, she had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and they kind of ran that kind of older teenager to like early teens, if not quite teen, preteens age. And that, in my brain, Carlota, that's the one that was doing a lot of the kind of interaction with us, and she set up the trike rides, she set up all the the trip to the shrine and all that kind of stuff. She was just a little kid. And so they always called me older brother. They always called me Kuya. And Nana always was like, oh, my son from the United States, right? My son from the United States. And so when I first saw them, they look exactly the same, first of all. Carlota's still this little tiny bitty thing. And so she's so cute. But she's now 30, so it's a little bit different.
And has the world's cutest little baby. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. She is just, yeah. And then Nanay, like, when we got into the van and they were sitting in the back and they wanted to kind of be respectful and give us our space and do all that stuff. And, I asked her to come sit with me, and she grabbed my leg and didn't let go for the whole 2-hour ride. And then she kind of kept caressing me and just being like, is this real, kind of a thing. And it was definitely a beautiful and tender moment, because she has so much love in her heart for someone that she barely even knows, kind of, because like I was just a missionary passing through, and they saw, hundreds of other missionaries after me and if not more. And so it was really kind of a nice to have that sweet connection with them. And they brought the whole family out that first day. If you guys remember, I mean, there was uncles, there was some cousins who were even smaller than Carlota at the time, that we had these weird jokes that we used to tell to each other. And that was kind of a weird nostalgic moment, telling those jokes back and forth. And it was interesting. It was, it felt like a family reunion back there, but like most family reunions, it didn't feel like, at least, I don't know if you guys felt this way, but I didn't feel like I had to be the center of attention, which is also really nice. Everyone was just there around, enjoying the company or not, eating the food, not like doing whatever. We're all just there. And that's what a family is, So yeah, so it felt really good.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they were so welcoming, because Johnson and I kept asking like, oh, is this something you want to go do, alone? Like, should we come to this? And they were so welcoming and made us feel like part of, the adopted family too. But it was really neat to see. And then I bring out, a photo of you and Carlota and a few of the others from way back when. And we like kind of did a little recreation of that with the members that were there. And, like a random t-shirt, like, oh, this was yours when you were here. And like the stuff that she's held on to for 20 years. Like you can tell she really loves you.
Isn't that weird? Like, I mean, it's baffling to me that she would care that much, because that the houses aren't that big, and that she couldn't possibly do that for every American, that walked through that place. There was something special about, the bond that we had. I was there for, Daniel, how long were we there were they the first 6 months?
I believe it was 5.5, 6 months.
5.5, yeah. So Daniel and I were fortunate enough that we had the transfer days like every single time together, whether we're going in and out of these different places. So sometimes I have to refer back to him, and his memory is a lot better than mine. But we were there for almost 6 months, or maybe around 6 months. And that's a long time to get to know somebody. And, I had different companions coming through there, and I was the constant. And so that was really, really kind of nice. A sad note about that place, my very first house that I lived in was demolished. We found out. I tried to show it off, and they had, I think it's a foreigner or someone that's like a Balipayan, someone that came back from working abroad or whatever. And they had purchased that area, and they built a new house. And it's a really nice house, but and that's kind of sad, because I was like, oh, I wanted to show you guys where I was like slumming it, like in that first house.
And it wasn't that long ago, wasn't it? Like 2 years ago or something they built it. So like, just missed it.
Just barely missed it. Yeah. But yeah, that was good. So, what was interesting though, too, is, Nana was really good about, I felt like she was good about welcoming you guys. She kept texting me like every day after, how's Espanol doing? That's all she cared about was Johnson.
My new name, Espanol.
So for those of you that don't know what my husband Johnson looks like, he has a mustache, and he is 50% Cuban. And so it's interesting that she could pick up on that. And so she immediately started, like she said to you, like right off the bat, called you that Espanol. And then, you do speak Spanish. So then you started kind of riffing with her in Spanish, and it stuck. And so Johnson will forever be known as Espanol. But then someone else, it was either down in El Nido or down in Manila, people could pick up on it. And here in the States, most people just assume that you are a gringo. So
I look as gringo as it gets. I think it's, sans the eyebrows and the mustache. But I think somebody in Manila was like, oh, in the market in El Nido, the lady with these like really beautiful muscles.
Oh, that's right.
The food, not the body part.
Both are fine.
Was maybe both. I didn't look that hard. She immediately asked me. She was like, "Hablas español?" And I was just like thinking to myself, like, all these people think I speak, think I'm from like a Latin American country or whatever. In the United States, nobody thinks that. Very average white guy in the United States.
It was actually, that was one of my biggest concerns. I was telling Daniel this ahead of time. Filipinos are very observant human beings, and they're very direct. And I was very concerned about, of course, they did, with the little baby girl, like they were asking to take some of my nose and put it on her, because I have a very long nose, apparently. They would caress my arm hair, which I don't even have that much arm hair. but it was like, it's an interesting texture, I guess, for them to feel. They observe like the human features very well. And they can tell like, you're from somewhere else. It's very weird.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too. Like Nana, like she was doing it to you like right off the bat, but she would smell your skin, and then eventually, like before we left, like I feel like we had made it when she like smelled my arm, and I was like, I'm in, like I am in the family. But then I was also like, sorry, honey, like I probably am sweaty, like it's 100 degrees out here, like.
But it's a different smell. Your sweat's going to be a different smell than their sweat, so it's something that I don't know. It's interesting behavior, but I love that you guys, you two are an interesting group. It's fun to travel with you because you'll jump right in and you'll just put yourself in uncomfortable situations where I would have just been sitting on the couch, like hanging out, waiting for someone to talk to me. You guys did not. You went out, you asked how the food is being prepared. You tried to talk to Carlota, you tried to talk to Nana, you tried to talk to everybody, playing with the puppies and all the stuff. So, you guys did a really good job. I think that's why she's like, hey, even if you don't come back, Andrew, like make sure that they understand that they're welcome back even without you. So, all right.
She's so sweet. Yeah. I mean, life gives you an opportunity like that. I mean, I've been fortunate to travel, a fair bit up until now in my life, but it's rare to have that kind of immersive cultural experience with like a family who, is welcoming you into their home and, cooking for you and showing you their customs. And so, given that kind of opportunity in life, make sure you take it because it is so cool to be able to see how people really live and what they're passionate about.
So one thing that I kind of just briefly want to talk about is we went to their one home that they live in, and it's cinder blocks or they call it hollow blocks there. It's a decent size. It's it has a couple of bedrooms and there's it's nice. It's inside of it like a little compound, and it was comfortable. There's lots of people there. I didn't feel like we were cramped or anything like that.
A window unit, which Nana was very passionate about, like the room that has air conditioning. She kept trying to push us in this room.
She's like, guys, go in there. And Daniel, she tried to put a towel down my back.
Oh, perfect.
So I didn't get pasma.
Yeah. A lot of times they'll put towels down your back to help wick off your sweat on your back. Because
I had wondered about that
condition called pasma that doesn't exist.
I saw it like on kids all the time, not so much adults, but I'd always see little kids with like almost like a tea towel tucked in the back of their shirt. And okay, that makes sense.
So there's all sorts of other things that we didn't get to, and I meant to explain this to you. I totally forgot, but it was like that first day, she literally was like trying to like shove it down my back. And I was like, Nana, stop. Like you have to just stop. And she just was very persistent, but she believes in that. And she also believes in a thing called an aswang. So if you guys are Google machines, just type in aswang and you'll see kind of the lore behind that. We don't need to talk about it on here, but it's a mythical creature that eats babies or something like that. So she believes in that. There's also like Danny, what else? How else can you get pasma?
So I was warned at one point to not go to bed directly after taking a shower with wet hair.
That's right.
So me being a little rascal, I would intentionally wet my hair, then just jump into bed like it was no big thing. And of course I did go blind, but I recovered the next morning.
And then like kind of along those lines is like you also, if you're exercising, you can't take a cold shower right away. You have to wait for a little bit because you'll get pasma. And if you ask them like what is pasma, there's no real answer. And that's the other thing too. So there's not, I think if you Googled it, like it talks about like fatigue and this and that, but there's nothing. It's a non thing, but it's something people believe in. Anyway.
Yeah. I heard it referenced at one point for one of the kids. And I was like, kind of like racking my brain. I was like, I'm pretty good at this medical stuff. And and I was like, pasma. I was like, they never taught us this in school. This is not something I've heard of. And I was like, I really I feel pretty good in my I know my ped stuff. Anyway.
It only exists in the Philippines. That's why you hadn't heard about it yet.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything about it because I didn't want to act like I didn't know what it was if it was real.
Yeah, the chapter on the Philippines you skipped over, I guess. So yeah, we'll kind of skip over El Nido, other than to say that is one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been in my life. we did a really cool climb, I guess, a little 10-minute climb or whatever to get to the top of like a lookout area. So if you guys are in El Nido for whatever reason, or if you come with us on a mission trip in the future, hopefully we'll do that, because it is, actually, I'll let you guys explain the Taro Cliff climb.
Yeah, it was great. So basically, you get all harnessed up. And at first, I was kind of thinking, oh, this is liability. Usually in the States, if you're having to wear a harness for an activity, it's not really necessary. I mean, Johnson and I rock climb, so it's, for that kind of thing, you need it. But usually in the States, for any kind of like hike that you need a harness that's guided in like a tour format, normally it's not necessary. When we started this hike, I was very grateful to have said harness, because you immediately go across this big bridge that's like a hanging,
like a suspension bridge.
Bridge. Yeah, exactly. And it moves a lot more than I thought it was going to move. And it's, you start looking at the integrity of the metal and you're like, and so you're clipped into your harness on a cable above. So that was like a nice little, extra level of security there. And after that, you start this climb up stairs that they have added in between these basically like rock spires, up into this beautiful vantage points that you get a few. We did like an extended tour, so we got multiple different views of El Nido. And so you see the beautiful bay with the beaches there and beautiful blue water. And then when you turn around, you see, the big cliffs behind you and hills and jungle basically. And so, yeah, it was wonderful. But oh my gosh, like those rocks are sharp, the spires.
I barely nicked myself just a little tiny bit on my finger as we were going down the stairs, and it immediately sliced open. And I'm like, that wasn't even like the sharp bit of that rock. So it was very interesting. Daniel, you know what? It might be kind of like where you live. You know how like the mountains, like it's like straight mountains like that.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like there too. There were some hills and stuff like that, but it felt like these rock formations kind of just came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And they're this big kind of solitary unit for most of them. And then there'll be nothing, and then another one, and then nothing, another one. And so like, if you look at our pictures, you'll see like these islands that have all these like rock formations. It's very interesting. It was hot at the top of that little hike, but it was definitely worth it. And if you guys end up going down there ever, Daniel, we'll have to do that. If we do like the island hopping tour that we were going to do before from El Nido to Coron, we'll take a stop and go to there, because that was totally worth it.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely more of a hike. She was like, "Oh no, it's a walk. It's stairs. It's a hike."
It was more. I mean, because it's pipe. What is it, like pipe stairs? I guess. So there's just do some stairs before you go. You get used to it. It felt like you're just climbing a lot of stairs. I probably wouldn't have like my parents go on it. It was probably too arduous for that. But I'm a big guy and I made it. So you guys can make it too. So. All right. Anything else in El Nido that we need to talk about before we move on?
I think so. Just the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen in my life. And it's interesting. Johnson and I both used to live in Charleston, South Carolina, where we get really large tidal swings. So you'll have like a 6-foot tidal difference. And it almost looked like it was that way in El Nido, except it's really, really shallow and it goes out for a long time. So when the tide is going out, you end up with this like mirror of almost glass against the orange sky, and it silhouettes all of the, little beaches and sandbars that are there. And the first one that we saw, there was all the little stray dogs were just having like a ball out where the water had gone out, and you could see them all just running around and playing. And it was like a very magical sunset.
They were so happy there. I think we should do a shout out to Buko Beach Resort, by the way, and their exceptional staff. And also they should sponsor the podcast and free lodging. And they just, the hospitality of the Philippine culture is like really amazing already. But I feel like they went just above and beyond. They got to know us. They, were not shy about saying, hello all the time. Mm-hmm. Anything that we needed, they would just go grab for us. And I don't think that we're needy people, but it was nice that they were just willing to do the extra little things. I also have to say that we did have some really great massages. Shout out to Joanna for you.
Yeah.
Brittany.
Best massage I've ever had in my life. If you are in El Nido, go to Buko Beach, ask for Joanna. She will take care of you.
Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was about $30, I think, for the.
Not even. It was
it?
1,000 pesos. So that's like $20 US. They come to your room there, which is beautiful. And, you have a massage right there in your room. They had the whole spa music playing on their phone. It was wonderful.
I mean, like an hour long, 70 minutes. Like it was, Allison and I had massages. I had like my little foot, well, I guess arm and leg and foot and hand massage. And it was awesome. And we just had it right there in our room, and phenomenal. Well, that's something we didn't get to enjoy as missionaries, Daniel. We missed out on that opportunity. But I mean, it's in Manila, you can get it for $8, $10, for a massage pretty regularly. So something you guys should look into if you ever go to El Nido. All right. Should we talk about Manila?
Yeah.
So the one thing that I didn't really love, I love that we had the van for the first trip going to Capas and back, but waiting for that taxi in that taxi line was the most annoying thing that we had done, I think, in multiple days.
Oh, to get from the hotel or
to get
from
to the airport to the hotel.
Yeah.
With their Grab is like their Uber. There's no Grab rides. And so anyways, we're in there. But I'm so happy that we waited for that particular driver, because he was a grandpa that was so happy to have grandkids. And he was just like loving life. And he was just very sweet and unassuming. And I think he and I talked almost the whole trip. And it was about a 20-25 minute ride to the hotel.
Yeah, y'all were cutting up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been telling you guys this, but Daniel, those jokes that we just like, the classic Filipino jokes that have no English silliness to them in the translation. He was dying at every one of my dumb jokes. Nice. And so when you can do that for me, then we're going to be best buddies. So, one other one, another joke that, by the way, I don't know if I ever told you guys this, but Ilocano, and Daniel, you probably know this one, but like if you're walking around and you're speaking to somebody that's like from down south and they speak Bisaya, or even someone that speaks like Kapampangan or just Tagalog or whatever, if you're talking about the Ilocano people and you're like, oh my God, and this is obviously the translation, be like, oh my gosh, you sound like a bunch of birds if you speak Ilocano, they will die laughing. That's the funniest joke. Oh my gosh, para mga ibon. It's the funniest thing. And it's not that funny at all. And I didn't get a chance to use it. And I wanted to so bad.
Oh no.
This means you have to go back.
I know. We have to. So we got to this hotel. We stayed at the Hotel Rizal. Was that what it was? Hotel Rizal. It was right next to Rizal Park.
Yeah.
Rizal Park. There we go. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Beautiful hotel. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on the hotel?
Yeah, well, I think we are like overly pleased because Andrew had forgotten where he had booked us. And so he was kind of preparing us like, the next hotel is really simple. Like, and we're thinking, like Johnson asked, like, is there running water? Like, is there air conditioning? And so we were prepared that we were going to be slumming it, which was totally fine. But we pull up to this gorgeous hotel, and I'm blanking on the history. What it used to be a building for the military, for the Americans when they were there.
It was the Army Navy clubhouse, essentially, back in 1890 or something like that. Mm-hmm. It went back quite a ways.
Yeah, and so they've renovated it, but you walk in, it's got this beautiful, really grand hall that you enter into with like wraparound staircases and beautiful chandeliers, and it's really clean and it smells good. And as everywhere that we went in the Philippines, the staff is exceptional and super nice. But they had like a bellhop, and so we were, very, very surprised. And by American standards, it's not outrageous, but yeah, we were just blown away by this. It was a great way to end the trip.
Yeah. And if you're ever looking at that, I mean, I think I saw on hotels.com $97 a night. It is not that expensive to stay there. It's very worth it. And since it's so close, I mean, close, I guess, is relative. I mean, it was how long was our walk to the fort? 25 minutes?
Yeah, 25. It was 25 minutes from the airport driving.
I mean, I'm sorry, from the hotel to the fort that we did that tour on.
Yeah, that would
On
say
our way
about
to
25
Chinatown?
minutes.
Was that-
Probably.
So it was, I mean, to get to the sites that you want to see kind of in that same area, it doesn't take that long. It took us probably also 25 minutes to get to the market by cab that we went to the next day. Everything is kind of right in that same area. So I really enjoyed that place a lot. We also experienced Chinatown, Filipino Chinatown, and that was rough.
It was
If
dirty.
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I think dirty might be a great word as well. Truly, I mean, there was a strong, deep layer of dirt on the streets, on everything.
There's a lot of like abandoned shops and closed down everything. It just, and I don't necessarily know if that's a COVID related thing. It could very well be, but it just felt like it had been like that for quite some time. So I would just, a word of caution. I think Philippines is generally a lot safer than it used to be. But maybe when you're looking for booking, don't maybe book in Chinatown. I don't know. Very beautiful sights. The things that we did see though, that we went to, we had some dumplings that were pretty good. Allison got her egg tarts.
Yeah, from gosh, I'm blanking on the name of that bakery, but Lord Stowe's.
Yeah.
Lord Stowe's. That's right.
Which were actually delicious. She did not falsely hype those up. They were very good.
Well, agree, disagree, I guess. No, they're pretty good. What else about Manila do we need to talk about before we probably wrap this thing up? So I know we've gone over our time.
Definitely the at least at that hotel, the pool on top.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
It was pretty next level. Infinity pool overlooking the ocean at sunset. It's essentially private during COVID. Really a very, very high end view and feel.
I think I did a Marco Polo for Daniel from that rooftop.
You did, but there's one thing I think about when you're talking about this fancy hotel, and that is it seems like it's too fancy for me.
Hey, amen, buddy. I felt we don't deserve that kind of nice luxury, whatever. The rooms were exactly what, they're a solid room, right? It wasn't that in and of itself, it wasn't like this big old suite or anything like that. So you'll feel better once you get to your room. So don't worry about that. And then just step outside the little gated area and you'll feel right at home. It's plenty of people that are selling things from the street and maybe also living there on the street. So you'll feel at home.
So if you could only do two things in Manila, what are the two things that are your favorite?
Ooh.
You're there on a Sunday. I would go to that farmer's market slash just market
Like
situation.
The Legazpi.
Yeah.
Legazpi Sunday market.
Yeah, I mean,
And
that
they also
anything.
They also have a
Okay.
Saturday market in that same area. I can't remember what the name of that one is, but it's like a couple blocks away.
I would
So-
say if you're not an adventurous traveler, for the various markets that I've been in other countries, that one was very clean, very safe. Like all the food, I think you could have eaten anything there and been totally fine.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Obviously, you want to always watch your belongings while you're traveling, but I was much less worried about like pickpockets or anything. It honestly felt like going to your American Sunday market, and it seemed like locals going to get their groceries. They're not worried about you. They're doing their own shopping. And so that was neat to see.
Yeah. And they had like the beauty pageant people on that Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
There were all those
all
people.
right.
You might get lucky and have them there.
Did you end up using that Grab app, or was it mostly taxis?
Both. I mean, we used it, I think, a couple of times that it actually worked. Unfortunately, I don't know if this is a COVID thing or I don't know, but they didn't have a lot of drivers. So it would come back within a minute and be like, no drivers. And so we would just find a taxi. Now, the one thing too, like if you're traveling there, and I guess Dong, this is mostly for you. If you are traveling there, a lot of those white taxis, I would ask them like, well, how much is it to get back over there? And like, you're the bahala, you're the person that's in charge of telling me how much that I get paid. So what we ended up doing is using the Grab app. It'll tell you how many pesos it would be for that same ride. Let's say it's like 300 pesos. That's what I would show them on the app. I'd say, hey, look, it says 300, but you were a lot nicer, so I'll give you 400. Or, it's 300 and here's 300. And if they were not that nice.
But it's weird because you didn't really negotiate that ahead of time, right? Like they'd say, oh, no, you tell me. And then you go and do the drive and then you just pay them whatever at the end. It is
they never complained.
No different than,
No one said anything about
Unless we tried to turn up the air conditioning. They didn't like that. We're like, we were hot at one point. We were like, oh, can we like turn the air up? And he was like, it's already on 3. And we're like, I don't
3 out of 4.
Like, can you kick it to 4? Like, I'm hot. Like, I'll pay you more.
Yeah, he's worried about gas prices, I think, on that one. I don't know.
Yeah, dang.
To answer your other question, though, I think also if you can see the fort and stuff there, that is another thing that we really enjoyed seeing. Like the kids could go there. There's a lot of walking in that area. It's a lot, mostly there's like a Jose Rizal section that you learn about him, and it's all in aircon, like good air conditioning too. It was almost cold inside those rooms, and so it's nice little reprieve from the heat. And so if you guys have a chance to go visit that, I think it was, do you guys remember how much it cost to get in?
75 pesos.
75 pesos.
So it's like $1.50. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally doable.
Awesome. What's the name of that fort?
Gosh, I want to say Fort Santiago, but I don't think that's what it's called.
No, I feel like you're right.
It can't be Fort Santiago. We're not going to put it in the show notes because we're not going to do a lot of editing of this one. We're going to pretty much like throw this up and everyone can listen. But Daniel, I'll probably message you that a little bit later on.
It is Fort Santiago.
Is that what it was? Oh, yeah. It's quite nice. One thing I do want to also say, there were plenty of ATMs around. I know in a lot of the YouTube videos, I mentioned it several times on our trips. I was just so I was upset a little bit. But they're like, there's only like one ATM in El Nido, so make sure that you stock up before you come. You don't need to. There was one on every block, it felt like. I mean, we counted no less than 10. So they're around. So any other questions, Dom? Any other things you want to know about like on our trip?
No, it sounds like honestly, it sounds like a magical trip. It sounds like you guys had an excellent time. And I'm glad you didn't have anything too crazy with like COVID stuff and all that. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, it was great to go back. I really do feel like I was at home though. Like that was the time where like I feel so awkward here in the United States a lot of times, like especially speaking to strangers, but there it just felt like I could talk to just about anybody I wanted to, and it felt natural and smooth, which is probably something I need to work through with the therapist of why that's different. But like that's I really enjoyed it. And also like I appreciate your advice like beforehand, because going back yourself, with the language thing, I was really scared about the language. Like I wasn't sure how much I would remember. And there were things that that slowly started coming back. I think if I spent another month there, then I would actually be pretty decent at it. So thanks for the cheering up of that one and being optimistic on that one, because it was exactly what you said it was going to be. So
well, I'm glad.
Espanol, Brittany, anything else that you guys want to chime in about our trip?
Yeah, I mean, I think just as a final, reminder, if you're going to stay at an airport for like overnight, what you need to do is you need to buy a $20 inflatable mattress and a $3 pump. Bring some blankets from the airplane and your neck pillows, some earplugs, and the little eye mask deal. And you can make yourself a queen bed in the middle of the airport. And no one's going to bother you about it.
Yeah, Johnson and I had it set up. We'll post a photo. You can see our little setup. Well, actually, you can see night one. So on the way there, I literally used my duffel bag as a blanket. Okay, so real rough. And then on the way back, it was like living large with our air mattress. So.
It was a luxury. I slept like 7 hours on the night back in the middle of the airport.
I'd be too embarrassed to do that for some reason. I just don't know if I could have done that. I was very proud of you for that.
Thank you.
Great. Again, it was a great investment though, right? I mean, for a good night's sleep.
It's great. We still have it, so we might use it again down the road for something, at least for like a guest at the house.
The next Philippines trip where we have a long layover. No, we'll never do that again. Just FYI, we're going to pay a few more dollars and not have that layover because that was terrible. Thumbs up all around. Okay. Brittany, any last words that you want to say about the trip or any thoughts?
Go if you get an opportunity to go, and stay tuned. Hopefully we're going to be able to get some kind of mission trip set up, and then you can join us and have take part in the experiences that we had or something similar to, but super nice people. I mean, gosh, everyone we met in the Philippines was so kind. And so, yeah, to be able to set up a trip like that, to be able to give back to those people would be wonderful. And I think you get a lot out of it, but beautiful country, beautiful people.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well, thank you guys for joining us for this evening. If you guys have any questions, make sure you guys hit us up on the email, Andrew@AToTH.com. You can also reach out to us on social media, and we'll post pictures whenever they are available. So thank you everyone for listening. Have a good day.
Bye.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.